Thank you everyone for joining us today on Wednesday webinar with PDSVISION. Today we're going to be talking about surfacing and an introduction into that. And so we're going to be looking at what some very basic functionalities and what you would use surfacing for. So that's what we're going to be covering today. But just a quick intro, my name is Keith Morris. I am a CAD specialist here with PDSVISION. My background is in 3D design, additive manufacturing, and also animation and rendering. PDS has some of these, aside from PTC, we also have partnerships with Luxie and Keyshot, Moldex 3D, ZW CAD, eTraj. So those are some of our main partners. At PDSVISION, we have a core concept called the digital thread. And what this is, it's an approach to PTC's software suite and how that integrates with other individual applications and how and where they're utilized in your manufacturing process. These rings represent where that fits within any of those types of processes. And this is a graph showing the workflow from design all the way to manufacturing and even as it's maintained. And this concept leads to reduced time to market. It reduces downtime and reduces costs. All right, let's get into it. So I'm going to be talking about some functions and benefits of surfacing, and then I'll get into the actual feature of some of the features that are used in surfacing. So what it is building a network of curves or splines and also points. And when you build those, you'll be able to essentially patch those together to build quilts. Some of you may have heard this type of terminology in previous types of software, but essentially what you're doing is building this so you can get designs that are organic or ergonomic, especially for product designs. So there's a lot, if you want smooth curvature type geometry, this is what is used for that purpose and for that type of design. But that's not the only thing it can be used for. Surfacing can also be used to trim or form into other solid geometry, such as to make certain cuts or grooves within your part. It also expands on traditional features. So if you're used to using extrudes or revolves or blends, it expands on that as well. So there are such things as swept surfaces, rotational blends, and those types of features can be used as well. Surfacing does remain parametric, and it could even ultimately be used as a part of an assembly. So just keep that in mind as well. And then the last thing I want to mention here is that there is an add-on tool called ISDX, which stands for Interactive Surface Design Extension. This does not come with the base package of Creo, so it is a purchased add-on, but I will be covering some of that today to show you how that operates a little bit as well. ISDX is a feature or a tool that's has its own sort of interface, and it makes it more of an immersive and intuitive approach for surfacing a part. So with that being said, I'm going to demo a series of exercises here today that just give you this introduction into surfacing. they'll all be fairly quick and simple, but it gives you we're going to give you essentially the introduction and basics into this. So I already have a part file set up here. And all I'm going to do in here is just set up 3 sketches. I already have my first one, which is just an ellipse. And now I'm in another sketch to, I'm going to choose a spline. So splines in your sketching group is really good to use for this type of geometry. What I'm going to do here is create like a handle or a grip, and eventually form it into a solid part, and then add a couple simple features that we're used to seeing onto that solid part. So right now, all I want to do is just stay within this. I want to stay within this ellipse right here. This will be the handle when it's extruded. And then I'm going to have 2 separate sketches going down here that'll be splines that'll eventually be merged together. So let's say I want to make the finger grip part, and I have 2 center lines to kind of give me my distance here, because I want it as an entire distance of 10. So like I said, it's remaining parametric already. And I'm just going to sketch out the finger grips here. Oh, where'd they? And I'm just going to draw a simple line like this, maybe down here. So there's one. I want it to stay within this ellipse, because when it merges and it cuts, you'll see that it'll maintain that type of geometry. And then I'll name this finger grip. We'll do another sketch along here as well. That'll be the palm side of the handle. And I'm just gonna use these for reference, so it stays within that distance of 10. Kind of something like that. And that's also within that ellipse as well. So we'll just call this palm grip. So now I just have 3 splines. They're just sketches, but what I'm going to do with them is do a surface extrude. Normally we're used to seeing the type as solid, but in this case, we're going to do a surface extrude, and I'm going to select this right here, and I want this symmetric. Right there. I also want to be sure that I'm going to hit cap ends. This is not the same as if I just did a solid extrude. This is just capping off a quilt. You'll notice the difference that this is kind of a bluish color, and anything that you see like this is a quilt. So anything in your Creo environment that has that's a surface like this is blue. So then I'll take the finger grip and I'll do another surface extrude. This, all I care about is it being symmetric. It doesn't really matter the distance. And then this side as well. So now I have 3 quilts in here. I got my selection filter on quilt, and you can see I got 3 extruded quilts. I'm going to use this function called merge. And I'm going to take both of these. And it's important to pay attention which way these arrows are pointing. Whatever. So this is anywhere where it's crosshatched like this. This pattern that you see is the geometry that is being kept. And then anything that's flat, like flat green, is what we're getting rid of. So there's one side, and then I'll do it again. You can see now that I'm keeping that side as well. So now I kind of got this handle grip, and let's say I want to, now I can make it a solid just by going to this solidify feature right here. It now becomes a solid, and I'm going to change selection filter back to geometry. And now I could just add, our typical engineering features on there. So I'm just going to add, some rounds to these edges. And now we have a solid part that we started with just basic splines and just extruding surfaces. Another thing we could use surfacing for is, let's say we wanted to use a volume analysis for the inside of this bin. Currently, the way it is, I can't just select the surfaces and do a measurement. So what I'm going to actually do is basically make a copy of the internal surfaces of this bin and then enclose it with a fill function up here in surfaces. So up here actually is where your surfacing tools are. So there's boundary blend, there's fill, style is actually the ISDX extension, and then there's the freestyle tool. In this demonstration, we're actually going to be using the fill. So the first thing I need to do is do a seed and boundary selection to get all those surfaces within there. I'm just going to copy and paste it. And then the next thing I want to do is choose the fill. And I'm going to just go along this top surface here as my reference. And then instead of sketching something, I want to use the project. So I would just want this inside loop right here. And now I have that. So now it's enclosed. If I turn off my solids in the layer group, now I have just this the internal surfaces, including, you got to make sure it's enclosed to give it the proper volume. So I'm going to change it to my selection filter to quilt. So now that I have the internal surfaces and this fill, I need to actually merge it together so it's all one quilt. So we'll just do that here, like that, and now I'm going to do my analysis and run a volume analysis on this, the entire quilt, and now I get that accurate measurement. So let's say I wanted to use a surface revolve to cut a notch out of this solid part right here. I could use that as well. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to choose my revolve and choose the type to be surface. I'm going to create an internal plane, and I'm going to offset it from this top plane right here to 2. Let's not forget our axis center line, something that could easily be forgotten about. And then I'm going to draw this shape. I'll make this a 0.4 for my strong dimension. Make this a 1.3 there. I go 1.4. And I want to make sure this is on 180, and I'm going to flip it. So now that I have that, I want to trim this up some. So I'm going to make 2 flat surface extrusions, and all I need for that is just a line. Surface, go to my reference here on one side and the same for the other. Then I'm just going to mirror that over the middle plane. Now I'm going to do a merge. I'm going to change my selection filter to quilt. I'm going to merge these two together, and it's pointing to the right sides, so I want that there. Then I'll do a trim with this quilt. I'm going to use this other plane as the trimming object. And I want to make sure this keep trimming quilt option is actually deselected, so right there. And now I got that trim. So you can start to see the next thing I need to do is extend this front edge loop, but this is where the cut is going to be. So extend this out, and I'm actually going to change my method to tangent. Now I'm going to copy these two surfaces. And then I'm going to trim this quilt again using those copied surfaces and flip that direction there. You can see that that's where I'm going to make the cut. So now all I need to do, if I change this to quilt and select it and solidify it, flip its direction, now I get that cut. And just to hide the surface, I'll show you. There it is. Now it's solid geometry. I'm showing you a completed version of this Y pipe, and but it was there. You see a lot of these points and a lot of these curves that are set up, and that's what's used to initially set up to eventually get solid geometry. So I'm just showing you this real quick because I'm going to switch to its previous form where you can see all the points and a lot of these curves that have already been set up. I want to show you, just give you an introduction into boundary blends and how we set those up. So that's using datum curves and also datum points, which you could already see on the other side here. What we're going to do is create these two boundary blends that give you think of it as stitching points together and with curves, and then within those curves you're building a boundary blend. So I'm just going to start with this curve here. Right off the bat, you'll notice it doesn't really follow the curvature. So what we need to do is change our end conditions, and you can see it changes down here, and I'm going to select this surface. I also want to make it perpendicular to this edge, and I'll do the same thing with the endpoint. Make sure it's going. Now we get that nice flow right there. Curvature, continuous end conditions, or tangent, depending on what you selected. It makes sure that when you're creating your boundary blends, it's setting up for a nice smooth transition between surfaces. So if you just leave it as free, there's going to be a break in that transition, and you want to make sure they're smooth, and that's why we want to select, make sure we have tangent or curvature continuous. So then I'll do the same thing for the other side here. Nice smooth transition there. So now we got that curve going there. And now we want another one going through, you can see 17 through 22 here. So these points here. This time I'm going to say tangent, and I'm going to say tangent to this edge right here because I want it to go this way. It's the same thing with the endpoint. So now I got this curve going there. So now I can add a boundary blend up in the surfaces group. This is what a this is going to create our surface within this area here. So my first direction, I want it to be here, and I could trim these points, the end points down here. So now I got one side, you can see it's pre-filled in like this orange color, and then I could switch to my second direction. And now I got my first surface right there using the boundary blend. So I'm not quite done yet. I have to actually trim it now, and I could use a graded curve to do the trimming. And also, so now it's going to look like it's going to go kind of this opposite direction of this here. So you'll see when I got the other endpoint set up. Before I actually do the trim now, this isn't actually on the surface. I'm just going to project it onto the surface and then do the trim. And then my direction up here. So now it's projected, and then I'm going to trim it. Right there. So now I could fill in this area with a boundary blend with the surface, and you see it's following that curvature. I'm going to select this curve, and just to point this out, sometimes you got to pick from list because you want to make sure you're selecting the correct curve. Right there. And I'll change my direction. Now, I could say, okay, and this will fill it in, but I want to make sure that I have my ends conditions or my my boundary conditions set to either curvature or tangent, so I can get a nice smooth transition between surfaces. So you have to do it with your curves and your surfaces as well. So these two, if I change it to curvature, it'll already pick up, you know, what it's going to be curvature continuous to. And these I'm going to change to tangent. It's top and bottom one. And it'll pick up what surface it's tangent to. And now I got that filled in. And then we would go along and continue to fill in, you know, the boundary blends along here on these sides. And then eventually we can merge all of the quilts together, and then it would give you what you saw earlier, this right here. All right, so a few other things I want to show you with the interactive surface design extension. I'm going to touch a little bit on what that looks like and what you can do with that. So right here, this was something I had made previously. I'm just going to hide this stuff to show you guys. This is, you could say this is basically a starting concept. It's not a fully fleshed out design, but, you know, creating this, this was all made within the ISDX tool, and I only had to make half of it, and then I had to mirror it over, and then I could make it a solid geometry. So I'm going to back up a little bit here. I just wanted to turn those I have several different style features going on here to kind of just break for the sake of this demo. But what I want to show you guys is what it looks like going into it. So this is the style tool. When you start a style feature, you're given this, the interface changes a little bit. You got your surface creation up here, and you got some different curve options as well. Active planes. You could even run different analysis within this as well. So what I initially started with was just three curves. So I got one going along this right plane, one going along this top plane, and then another one going along this front plane here. But I need a couple more curves in order to give me to build you know, a surface within the middle here. So if I just start with this curve and I want to go from here to here. And I could also see this in graphics toolbar. If I hit show all views, I have all the views up in the main screen here. And if I drag out, I could focus on one, the one in the isometric view. So you can see here, I could also go back in here, and let's say I want to add a midpoint. I'm going to drag this front view up. I'm going to drag it like this. You can see it's changing in my views. So now I have that, and then I'm also going to want one at the back here. One there. If I'm holding my shift button, that's what's making it snap to those curves. I'll add another midpoint here, and I could just change. I could add as many points as I want to this curve, but this one's going to be a little bit different from the front. Kind of follow the back design here. So, and now I got that curve going on there. So now I can add just a surface in here, which is similar to what we saw in a boundary blend. So that starts by selecting the curves, and I want to trim these at these edges here because I'm just getting this area in here. You can see it starts to, you get a preview of it already. Select these ones. I also want to be sure to add, see how this center curve is sticking out? I could add that as an internal chain, because when I go to manipulate the surface later, it'll actually, if I add more points to this, it'll actually allow me to manipulate that surface. So now we got one surface there, and then I would continue along here and draw another curve right here, and then make a patch between these 4 points here. You may have seen earlier that I'm going to drag this down. So there's the initial curves. At some point, I don't want any patches that have 3 points, because it's all converging to what's called a knot. So that's why eventually I would create these two curves right here, and then split this up. So these are two different. So now this is all one. It may look like this is three, but it's not. So this is four. This has four sides, and this has four sides. So that way I don't get any anywhere pointing to a knot, which would be in this area. And the same thing on the back side here. Drag this down here. So that's what you can do within the ISDX tool. One other quick thing I want to show you guys with that tool. So in another example here, I want to show you guys this model was actually created using the Freestyle tool, which is basically a free form modeling feature within Creo. You can basically start with shapes such as cubes or spheres and basically start to add edges and start pushing and pulling to get your shape, kind of like digital sculpting in a way. The thing is it's not parametric, but it is really good for faster concept design and product design, and even you could even get a final design out of it. So with that being said, this is like the outer piece of a headphone. It doesn't have the cushion part in it. So let's say I'm happy with this design, but it needs to make engineering sense. What most design engineers are used to when they're working in surfacing is either boundary blends or using the ISDX tool. So what I can do is essentially start to build surfaces over this model and get something that's parametric and something that makes manufacturing sense. So I have two examples here already. If I were to hide this geometry, you see that this is the area that I modeled over with the patches. So to show you guys what that actually looks like, I'm gonna hide those and I'll start a new style tool, which again, this is the ISDX extension. I can start to just add curves and snap it essentially to this geometry. So what I'm gonna just by holding my shift key, it'll start to snap to the geometry here. And you can see how it's going over that. So I just want that as one curve there, and then I'll make one on the left and right sides, and then one on the bottom, and I'll be able to connect them. All right, so you see now that I have my four outer curves and then two that I'm going to use for an internal chain. So then I'll choose my surface right here. And we'll start creation of that. And then, by the way, I'm going to hide this geometry. Go in the other direction. Let's fill there. And now I want my internal chains. And you can see that the surface is created there. I'm going to turn this geometry back on. You'll see that surface is pretty much over that design right there. And then I would continue on to break it down and to form more patches along here, what we saw earlier. So essentially, so I got the first patch. Then we'd add these ones as well, like these ones. I will open now for any questions. You guys should be able to type it in the chat if there are any, and I'll just at this point wait for any questions. Let's see if there are any, actually. None yet. All right, here we go. So there's a few people asked this. This will be available on our YouTube channel, which I encourage you all to follow and go to PDSVISION on YouTube. This webinar will be uploaded live the next day, so that's where you can watch this again. And hopefully, Jim, my screen did not freeze the whole time for you. Oh, Jason, I think you were asking about where I was cutting out the part using the revolve feature to cut out the part there. I think the extension was going probably a little bit too far, although the extend probably would have failed. But basically, once you solidify that surface into the solid part, it then makes the cut. So that was basically the last step. But at that point, I just wanted to continue to show you guys what else you could do with the tools. The name of the YouTube channel, Gala, is just PDSVISION, so you can just go there. And then there was another. Krista's question is about, let me see, measuring an inner volume with surfacing. You're referring to that one exercise I was showing with the bin. Yeah, so if you have a more in-depth question, feel free to ask. But you know, you would be using that. That's why I had that bin as an example. If I copy and paste the inner surfaces and then close it off with a fill feature using a surface, and then I merge those together, I'm taking that quilt and I'm measuring just that quilt. I'm not actually measuring anything to do with the solid geometry. Because in the state it was in, I couldn't just select the inner surfaces and measure that. It would be inaccurate. In order for a completely accurate measurement, I had to use the fill. I had to use like that fill to cap it off, and then that encloses it, and then it gives me a completely accurate measurement. And hopefully, Krista, that makes some more sense to you, but feel free to ask any more in-depth questions if that's what you were looking for. And like I said, once this is on YouTube the next day, you can rewatch that section if you'd like to get a better idea of that. These are good questions, guys. If there are any more questions, feel free to ask. If nobody has any questions, you can feel free to leave. And again, strongly encourage you guys to go to the PDSVISION YouTube channel. This webinar will be on there by tomorrow. And then in addition to that, you can find several other webinars that are on there. Chris, the surfaces in my models are not displayed in purple, like that bluish purple color. That's strange. I don't know what version of Creo you're using. Maybe could be an older version, but as far as I know, any surface or quilt that's in Creo is always, that's the default color. So my question to you is that a surface? Perhaps we can communicate after this webinar a little bit, and you could send me, a screenshot or something. Great. Yeah, I'll have your email address. I'll have anyone's email address after this webinar, actually, if you guys, so we could continue to answer any questions. Everyone that's saying thank you, you are most welcome. Join us every. Yeah. I'll wait a few more minutes, but if you guys, if no one has any other questions, feel free to go ahead and leave. You're welcome, Brian. Thanks for being here. All right, well, I'm going to end there, and thank you guys for being here, and have a great rest of your day.